It's perfectly fine to have boundaries around your time. This is another form of boundaries that I think sometimes goes unnoticed. I think when most people think boundaries, they think to put a wall up to certain things. I want to make that clear first. Boundaries are not walls. They are not walls. Walls are totally different. Walls are built to keep people out. Boundaries are a healthy parameter in which you can fully exist in your relationships. Okay? They're very different from walls. But anyways, I think and there's different forms of boundaries. One of them is time. And I think a way for us to consider our time is also to learn how to check in with ourselves and check on our capacity. To consider our capacity. What capacity do I have for what I'm about to do? Or if somebody's asking you if you want to go somewhere, if you want to go do something, or whatever the invitation is. That invitation is also an invitation on your time. They're asking you for your time of some sort. And I think it's really important to check in with yourself first and ask yourself, well, what capacity do I have for that? And if it means that you don't give them an answer right away, fair enough. Give yourself that chance. You can politely say, thank you for that invitation. I'll get back on that. I'll get back to you on that. There's a way to respond with, thank you to the invitation. Thank you for considering me. I'll double check back with you. And check in with yourself. See where you're at. Ask yourself, what capacity do you have for what you're being invited to? And if let's say if the event is like from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., that does not automatically mean you have to stay that whole time for it to be valid. I can't tell you how many times I've been invited to family functions, whether it's birthday celebrations, whatever it may be, and the function is like 6 hours long, 7 hours long, whatever it may be. I don't automatically think, well, I don't have the 2 to 9, whatever. No, it's what capacity do I have for this, for this social aspect, And I'll ask, and sometimes my answer to that is 3 hours. Sometimes my answer to that is 4. And it's also not a strict rule, right? It's more of like a guideline you're giving yourself. If you happen to go and 3 hours in, you're still having a great time and you still, you don't have any like real plans after, and things like that, or anything important to get back to, and you're having a great time, stay another hour and see how you feel, That's kind of how I go about it. But I have a general idea of the capacity that I do have to give to that prior to going. Okay. And then that's when I'll say, yes, I can go for X amount of time, or just go. And then around that time, if you're not at the place in yourself where you have the capacity to extend that time, then politely excuse yourself from the event. Tell them, thank you for inviting me, etc., etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with time boundaries. Actually, it's very important. Without it, I've experienced things like resentment, burnout, overwhelm, things more of that nature. And it's very draining. And then what ends up happening is that it ends up associating that consequence with future invitations, when really nothing's wrong with the future invitations or the events itself. It's really the boundaries that that you may be lacking that are leading to those consequences internally. So really, it's really very important. I recommend you check in with yourself first. What capacity do you have for this, if any? If you don't, you politely decline. Nothing wrong with if you could get an idea or a snapshot on who's going as well. This does affect either your capacity or how if you're going to end up feeling drained or whatever you feel you need to gain clarity on this event, whether it's where it's at, who's going, what is it for, whatever. Ask the questions and then say, okay, I'll get back to you, and then check in with yourself and see where you stand right now as far as that. Where's your capacity? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything personal towards the people or the event. It doesn't always have to be that. It could just be that it could be a fantastic event, but it's important to check in with yourself and see where you're currently at, because you have your own life and things that you have going on, or things that you may mentally be dealing with, or whatever the case may be. So check in with yourself. Where am I with this? Where are my comfort levels? What is my capacity with this? What can I give, if anything at all? And I think that by doing that, you not only will you feel more in control of your time, but you're much less likely to experience the whole burnout, drained, overwhelmed, or even in some cases resentment. You can avoid all of those things. You also can build confidence and self-respect. Confidence in knowing that you can manage your time in a way that is healthy for you and takes your capacity into consideration. And self-respect, you're respecting yourself enough to check in with yourself first and take yourself into consideration in the first place. Is perfectly healthy. By the way, I recommend, if you want to read more on boundaries, there's a fantastic book that I read that I think I'm going to want to end up reading it again after the book I'm currently reading. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And in the comments, I'll tell you the author. I don't have the book on me right now, but fantastic book. And it breaks down all forms of boundaries. It breaks them down each by each chapter, and then gives you these, it tells you what it looks like when you don't have the boundaries. What that leads to. Then it tells you what it does look like having the boundaries, and what that looks like in your everyday situations, and how that can play out, the benefits of that. And then at the end of the chapter, it has the questions that you can be honest with yourself and check in with yourself and see if these are boundaries that you are already exercising, or whether these are boundaries that you need to implement, and in what way. I highly recommend that book. Just like I'm going to highly recommend myself to now walk into this food place because I'm really hungry. But feel free to share in the comments, are you already exercising boundaries around your time? If you aren't, what's your experience with that? If you are, what's your experience with that? I would love to hear from you. Much love.